You know, there are moments in history when a single sentence seems to capture an entire era's danger, a phrase that acts like a historical flare, signaling that a nation has stepped into a period of deep, gathering risk. We're here to look at one of those moments, and the unbroken pattern it always points to. Nobody can take us. When Donald Trump said those words, it was more than just political talk. If you read history closely, it was what you'd call a precipitating indicator. It's a boast made against the forces of time itself, one that has echoed down the corridors of history, and it always, always comes before a fall. So let's be really clear about what we're talking about here. Certain statements aren't just words, they are signals. They tell you that there's been a critical shift, a break from reality that becomes the single greatest threat a nation can possibly face. This right here illustrates that critical shift, the moment we move towards something that feels inevitable. The sources we're looking at argue that a statement like this marks the exact moment the cycle of arrogance, of hubris, actually begins out loud. The danger is no longer some distant storm cloud on the horizon. It's here. The path is set.
And this is the most important part. The risk isn't just about one person and what they say. The real vulnerability is societal. It's when we as a people start to accept that story of invincibility, when we start to believe we can't be touched. That belief just corrodes a nation's ability to see threats for what they are, and it creates the fundamental weakness upon which every great power has eventually crumbled.
Look, this isn't some new thing. This is maybe the oldest and most consistent pattern in all of recorded history. So let's turn to the history books because they show us exactly how this pattern plays out. Every single empire that has believed it was special, that it was the exception, has been proven wrong by the cold, hard facts of time. Just think about the Roman Empire. For centuries, they truly believed they were the eternal city, a power that was destined to last forever. Its citizens literally could not imagine a world without Rome. But that collective belief in their own permanence, it didn't stop the unthinkable. In 410 AD, the city that had conquered the whole world was, itself, conquered. Or what about Napoleonic France, an empire driven by one man's absolute belief in his own personal and national destiny of just inevitable victory? Napoleon saw himself as an agent of fate. But that very arrogance blinded him to the reality of a Russian winter and the massive coalition that was building against him. It all led to Waterloo. His belief in his destiny did not change his fate one bit. You've heard the famous phrase about the British Empire, the sun never sets on its dominion. That was a boast of endless global reach. And that idea of permanence, it was baked into the British identity for generations. And yet, the sun did set. 2 world wars and rising calls for independence dismantled that empire piece by piece. It just goes to show you, geopolitical reality always wins against illusions of endless power.
And maybe the most shocking modern example, the Soviet Union. It projected this image of monolithic, unstoppable strength, of historical inevitability. To the outside world, and even to many of its own people, it seemed like a permanent fixture of global power. And then, it just collapsed, almost overnight. That facade of strength was hiding a deep, fatal weakness.
So the pattern is pretty clear, right? But what's the mechanism here? What's the common thread that links all these fallen empires? It's not a foreign enemy, and it's not a single bad decision. It's a psychological weakness. It's a systemic risk that rots an empire from the inside out.
This really gets to the heart of the problem, systemic denial. It's what happens when a nation simply stops seeing itself clearly. The greatest danger isn't an invading army. It's the internal decay of a nation's ability to just look in the mirror. When people internalize the belief that they can't be harmed, they become strategically blind. They can't prepare for shocks because they refuse to even believe that shocks are possible.
And we have to be absolutely crystal clear on this point. This has nothing to do with politics. It's not about left or right. This cycle of pride and denial, it's not owned by any single ideology. It's a fundamental vulnerability of power itself. It's afflicted every kind of empire you can imagine, from ancient monarchies to modern republics. This is a human pattern, not a political one. Which brings us to a really critical question. A question that every citizen of a powerful nation has to think about. What's the real danger here? Is it the leader who makes the boast of invincibility? Or is it the public that is so eager to believe it, so willing to bury its head in the sand? History seems to suggest there are 2 sides of the very same coin, and they both lead to the exact same place.
The warnings against this exact problem aren't theoretical, they aren't academic. They are direct, actionable intelligence from people who lived through the consequences. We really shouldn't see these as distant echoes from the past. We should see them as urgent messages delivered to us from the rubble of fallen empires. Just listen to the words of Jerome after Rome fell. The city which had taken the whole world was itself taken. That is the ultimate reversal of fortune. It's a direct, chilling counterargument to the mindset that nobody can take us. It's a reminder that no amount of past dominance guarantees you immunity from future collapse. This admission, this is a warning against that tempting belief in national exceptionalism, that quiet, insidious idea that we're different, that our nation is somehow immune to the forces of history that brought down everyone else. That one thought, it can't happen here, is what creates the very conditions for disaster to strike.
And finally, this reflection from Soviet citizens. Yesterday we were a superpower, today we are nothing. This speaks to the terrifying speed and the totality of a collapse. It's a powerful counter-narrative to the illusion of permanent strength. It shows just how quickly a nation that seems invincible can be completely undone.
So if the historical pattern tells us that collapse is pretty much inevitable once this cycle of arrogance begins, then what's the rational response? Well, it's not to despair. The only logical thing to do is to shift our focus from prevention, which might not even be possible anymore, to mitigation. The objective changes. We're no longer trying to stop the storm. We're trying to build a shelter that can withstand it. The goal becomes lessening the impact of systemic shocks and building real, tangible resilience, not in the halls of government, but from the community level up. This is a call for pragmatic foresight, not for panic denial. And the framework for this is pretty straightforward. First, cultivate humility. That means actively pushing back against these invincibility stories and questioning any leader who boasts of endless strength. Second, enhance community resilience. That means strengthening local bonds, diversifying our sources of stability so we can handle shocks. And third, preserve historical memory. We have to treat the lessons of past collapses like urgent, relevant data, not like ancient history. So here's the bottom line. Every empire falls. Every loud boast is eventually silenced. America is not exempt from the laws of history. Denial isn't going to change that fact. The wise, they won't deny it. They will prepare. Because when the collapse comes, and this historical pattern says it will, only those who have faced reality will have the foresight and the resilience to endure what's next.